All right, we're live. It's 6 o'clock.
All right, 6 p.m. We'll call this meeting of the Village Board to order. Y'all join me in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
To
to the republic, which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty,
and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, you have the roll.
Trustee Mann.
Here.
Trustee Gerger.
Present.
Trustee Fountain.
Here.
Trustee Detmers.
Here.
Trustee Mao.
Here.
Trustee Scherschel.
Present.
Village President Kimsey.
Present. We have a motion to allow Trustee Mao to participate by phone. He's off on work assignment.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Detmers and Trustee Fountain, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Madam Clerk, you have the attendance reflect that he's here. You don't have to take it again. Any public announcements? Hearing none. Public comment this evening? No one has signed up. A motion to put the consent agenda on the table?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Mann, second by Trustee Gerger. Discussion regarding the minutes or the warrants. Hearing none. Madam Clerk, you should take the roll.
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
No old business. Item 1 under new business is an ordinance requesting the annexation of certain territory of the Village of Chatham, Sangamon County, Illinois, commonly known as Glenwood Lake Estate, by court-ordered referendum. Can I have a motion to put this on the table?
So moved.
Trustee Scherschel's made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Mann. Attorney Jerkins.
Thank you. So this is an ordinance that will allow us to initiate an annexation process for the Glenwood Lake Estate subdivision. It's a process, instead of going out and getting annexation petitions from each individual property owner within the subdivision, we will ask the court to put a referendum on the ballot, and then those people will vote at the municipal election in April of 2019 to determine whether or not they want to annex all. If a majority say yes, then that entire territory will be annexed into the village. So this is the first step in that. If the ordinance is approved tonight, we will then start immediately working with the circuit clerk and the court to get a court date. There will be notice in the newspaper and otherwise of this court hearing and the passage of this ordinance. People will have an opportunity to appear in court if they meet one of the criteria to potentially try and get their property removed. But this will go through a court process. They'll determine if the ordinance is valid, and if it is, then they will order the question on that ballot. So this is, again, a process we thought might actually be easier than going out. A lot of these people had previously, I believe, signed to annex into the village. And this process will allow us to do it all in one swoop, as opposed to going out and saying, okay, these guys are contiguous, now we can get them, now we've got another layer, another layer, another layer. We thought this would be the most efficient and effective method to annex this subdivision. Happy to answer any questions.
And when you said majority, is that the majority of those individuals who are voting, or of the entire group?
No, the majority of those voting in the election.
Okay.
And the only people that will get those ballots are the people in that subdivision.
Any other questions? Discussion? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
Item 2 is an ordinance establishing salaries for the village manager and the chief of police. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Fountain made a motion. Second?
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Gerger. Discussion?
I've been thinking about this motion. I know that it says retroactive since May, right to go with the budget. And knowing that it says retroactive since May, as I've thought about this, what I would ask is that if we could table this to the next meeting, because what I would ask is that we have a formal evaluation process that we could use that also would allow for a survey using Matrix like they were going to use and do a survey of staff. This is something I've thought seriously about, just because any organization I've been part of, you have the standard manager evaluate their employees, and then our main function as the governing body to oversee our village leadership is to then, they've always had in these organizations then a survey of the staff of their leadership. And that's just something that I wanted to propose to the board. I don't want to put that off on the salaries for you, but that's just something that's been on my mind as I've thought about this ordinance today.
I wasn't present last time we discussed. I just don't know what evaluation goes into it. But I would like to know that there is an evaluation process.
That's what you missed by.
Right. And I don't know if we have that evaluation process in writing or how it's done. Just like Paul said, in organizations that typically have boards, not just municipalities, the boards do have surveys and do evaluations, and that would be my only concern. It's not to say that I don't think you both are doing a great job from everything I see. And I don't know that this process should hold up these raises, but I think a process should be put in place if it's not.
Yeah, we've done annual evaluations. Those were reviewed last week during executive session. Those presented. Obviously, I got a copy if you'd like to see it. They maintain in their personnel files.
Okay.
But that's been done. But
and because
if you'd like to change the way that it's done going forward,
that would include kind of I know we have that, but then also that would include goal setting for the next year. Because I looked up the National League of Cities, and they have all these template forms on how to further engage communication and relationship between the village leadership and the council. And as part of that, I also was thinking about not just looking at a list of what's occurred in the previous year, but also then establishing what the goals are for the next year and including a survey of the staff for the board to review.
And I'm trying to miss where you missed the goals that were outlined.
They're on there.
Well, I got them for 2 minutes.
Would you like an opportunity to review them again?
I just think it should be a thorough process that would last beyond that, where there could be more discussion.
So what would you like to propose?
I am proposing to table this until next week, and I'd like to work with Attorney Jurgens to establish an evaluation process that would include a survey of the staff. It would have, and critical to that, it has to be anonymous. I've worked in higher ed and healthcare, that it's standard practice.
So
for any that I've ever heard.
And Paul, I guess a question for you. When you have done these, what size of staff typically is there?
They're larger, but we're growing. And I think back to when I ran, and during the campaign, I just know when I talk to people beyond infrastructure needs, and again, this is not anything of the people in these roles, so please don't take this personally. This to me is a process, regardless of who's up here, who's in those positions. This is something I want to see for a process for this board in this village that would last beyond us. So I just wanted, this came up, and so I'm just bringing it up now. So it really doesn't have anything to do with who in the position. It has to do with the process, because I think that's the role of the board, is to look at the process.
Didn't we discuss in executive session the raises of Vern and Pat? Why didn't this issue come up then? It could have been discussed then.
It was brought up then and there. I didn't know we were discussing it that night, and I've had a little time to think about it. So now I'm bringing it up for our discussion as a board tonight.
Trustee Scherschel's made a motion to table. Is there a second?
I mean, I would second it. I just wasn't part of last week. And if the raises go back to May, I mean, if it is retroactive, even if we took action on the next board meeting, it's still not like they're not going to get their raise. I don't know that I would table it if they weren't retroactive.
Right.
I guess the other question I would have, you keep saying tabling it to the next meeting. Well, I think by the time, let's say Jeff puts something together, and then it's given to the various staff, and then you give them time to respond to it, I think we're definitely beyond the next meeting.
Sure.
I do think it may be a good idea to look into in the future, but I guess if everyone seemed to be fairly good with basically what both Pat and Vern did and with what their goals are set, to me it just seems like this is something let's look at for next year so that we've got more time instead of all of a sudden trying to rush it in and put something together versus let's spend a little bit more time on it.
I don't disagree. The reason why I bring it up now is just because this was one component that we were supposed to get from Matrix, and we've just kind of been waiting, so just been waiting on that. And then when this came up, and it's brought up in the closed session last time, and since I've thought about it and knowing that we've been waiting for an update, that's why I'm bringing it up now. So again, I'm not opposed to the raise. I'm for a more formal evaluation process that gives the ability to survey our staff. And I think that improves our ability to understand what's going on with the village and improving our relationship with our village manager and the police chief. So I don't disagree, Terry. If the board wants to move forward with that tonight, I'm not opposed to that. I'm just taking the opportunity to bring this up now since we've been waiting for the matrix so long, and I know that has to do with the comprehensive plan, but this function is a separate function. And it seems pretty important for us as a board to discuss.
Well, and I would agree, but I think we want to go into taking a look at what would be proposed. So, all of a sudden I think we're 2-3 meetings out, before we have anything in place.
And that's not really fair to me and Vern.
Pat, let's just.
All right.
Sure.
We follow.
I would say that I don't disagree with the idea of doing this. However, I do agree that we should look at it for the future. Like I said, I wish this would have been discussed a little bit last time, which it wasn't. But and we could have done that. But I say we move forward on the raises as was stated.
All right, so we do have a motion to table with a second. On the motion to table, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Mann.
No.
Trustee Gerber.
I'll say yes with a caveat. I'm okay with it going forward too.
Trustee Fountain.
No.
Trustee Detmers.
No.
Trustee Mao.
No.
And Trustee Scherschel.
Yes.
Okay. To the ordinance then. Further discussion regarding.
I would just like to see us try to put a formal process for future. And
I have a problem with that.
Yeah, find it. If you
And
have
I'm
better recognition, something different than what you saw, by all means.
I agree with where you're going, Paul. I really do.
Again, and when I brought it up, I said, knowing that this was retroactive, so it wasn't to delay this, because because it was just brought up now in October, and it's retroactive to May, so I'm just bringing that up when this got brought up to us just now.
yeah, it's nothing about the current job anybody's doing.
I think it would be
In my
nice
thoughts.
if, when we give the other raises and pass the budget, that stuff is all
Yours is done there.
instead of having
Yeah.
to go through this 6 months of.
I would agree.
This should happen in March. I mean, this should be, yeah.
Yeah, you
Well,
guys should
well
be
ahead.
just in line exactly when in they are too. I agree with that.
So what I would propose is that we actually set ourselves a timeline on this and we have this done by January 1.
And you have the
If we
process.
if we want to rebuild a process, then we have it ready to go before we even set the budget, and if we can get this done before January 1, I don't see why we wouldn't go ahead and set ourselves a number.
Well,
Yes.
I would look
Move that to your committee.
Yep.
agenda.
Yeah, if we could move that part that I'm talking about to the committee of the whole, for next committee of the whole. And Paul can bring forward a sample of what a resolution may look like. That would be good.
Further discussion on the ordinance. Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Item 3 is a resolution confirming the reappointment of Brian Stanky to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Chatham. I have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Detmers has made a motion, second by Trustee Mao. Discussion. Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Item 4 is an ordinance authorizing engagement with Flower Sanitation for the use of dumpsters for the Village Fall Cleanup Weekend. Can I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Trustee Mao has made a motion. To second.
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Fountain. Pat, you want to review this, or does anybody need this reviewed?
They were the only bidders.
Right.
Very similar to what it was last year.
And this is the next 2 weekends?
It's this coming Saturday and the following Saturday.
Times?
7,
8
8.
to
Put you on the,
7 to noon.
put you on the spot.
And Pat, will you be looking to put that on the village's website? And is it worthy of a e-alert?
I wouldn't send out an alert for that.
Okay.
I think the people that want to bring stuff to that know that it's coming. They've been waiting all year for it.
Madam Clerk, would you take her?
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Item 5 is a resolution recommending trick-or-treating hours. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Trustee
I'll
Churchill.
second.
Second by Trustee Mann. Recommended hours will be October 31st from 4:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And as always, those who wish to be visited by trick-or-treaters are encouraged to leave your porch lights on, so they'll visit you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No further business. Is there any additional public comment for the village board this evening? Hearing none. Schedule of meetings. Committee of the whole will follow this. ADA Transition Plan, 6 p.m. October 16th. Planning Commission, 6 p.m. October 18th. Village Board, 6 p.m. October 23rd. Public Properties and Recreation Committee, 6 p.m. November 12th. Utility Oversight Subcommittee meeting,
We'll move that to the month after because we're doing every other month with public.
December?
Yeah.
December 12th. Or December,
Whenever the Monday falls.
hang on, dude's got it.
December 10th.
December 10th.
Yep.
So now they're going to start at 6 every other month.
Yeah, every other month.
Public properties does not meet.
Correct.
And the Police Commission, 5:30, November 15th. All meetings here at Municipal Hall. We have no need for a closed session during the board. We have a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned.
Okay. Call to order. Committee of the whole. Roll call, please.
Trustee Mann.
Here.
Trustee Gerger.
Present.
Trustee Fountain.
Here.
Trustee Detmers.
Here.
Trustee Mao.
Here.
Trustee Churchill.
Present.
Public comments on agenda topics? There was none, Pat, correct? All right. Can I have a motion to bring the consent agenda forward?
So
Make
moved.
that motion.
Hang on.
Okay.
Make a motion to allow Matt to participate.
Oh, yes, I apologize. I need a motion to allow Matt to participate.
So moved.
Trustee Mao to participate by phone.
I'll second.
Trustee Churchill, seconded by Trustee Mann. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right. Now a motion to bring the consent agenda to the table.
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Trustee Churchill, seconded by Trustee Mann. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? They're brought. New business, old business, we have none. New business, CMT engineering updates.
Okay, a couple of items going on around town. Obviously, everyone see the big tarp around the elevated tank, so tank painting is moving forward. We did set the utility building adjacent to the tank that went in about 3 weeks ago. Everything went smooth with that. The set tank painting is underway. We've heard a lot of comments and questions about pulse pressure being maintained to our system. So
That's the one big question I have. To clear it up, because there's a lot of confusion out there.
Okay, so 3 methods. They're all going on concurrently. So we have the tanks, the 4 tanks that are located around town. So what those tanks are is hydromatic tanks. They're partially filled with air and water. They're connected to the fire hydrants, but that's only to make a connection to the system. There's not water coming in and out and back and forth. It is being maintained in that space.
So
the tank and the hydrant. Now the hydrants, prior to making a connection, were all disinfected. The tanks were all disinfected. Samples were collected, sent to an independent testing lab for bacteria and other contaminants, and came back negative. So that's when they were put into connection and use. So all of them were cleaned. Thank you. All of them were cleaned and tested and put into systems. So those tanks only provide a limited amount of pressure to the system. The volume is small relative to, the rest of the system. So what happens is with those tanks, you only have about an 8-minute delay between if we lose the pumps and the system goes down into a full boil order. So a couple other things we have going on. So we have the pressures being maintained in the system by our pumps out at the pump house. You have the low service pump and the high service pump. We reworked the SCADA system to put those into constant use. So they're pumping 24/7 against the system to provide pressure to Village of Chatham. So when demand's high, the secondary pump comes on. Demand's lower, it's just maintained by the normal service pump. So the other fail-safe that we have in our system is an interconnect with the City of Springfield along Route 4. So what we have done is to utilize that system, because the 8 minutes if our pumps go down isn't much time to react or coordinate with South Sangamon or keep pressure to the system to avoid a system-wide boil order. We raise the pressure in the system by about 10 psi, pounds per square inch, to match what the City of Springfield system pressure is at the interconnect at Route 4. They have a check valve there and a meter. So when we open that system, there's not a flow of water under normal operation. But if we have a system drop in pressure, we're also getting pressure from the City of Springfield, in addition to the minimal amount on the hydromatic tanks and then whatever the pumps can provide. So kind of the 3 are working in conjunction with each other to maintain pressure on the system during the elimination of the tank because of the painting operation. So normally when the tank's full, just the static pressure in the tank provides pressure on the system and no pumps or anything else are involved. But during this process, up until probably about Thanksgiving, these measures are in place to maintain pressure. So maybe hearing from constituents that, hey, shower pressure is a little bit better or something like that. The reason being is we had to bring the pressure up to match what CWLP's pressure was, so then we weren't taking water from CWLP on a daily basis, but they could also provide a 0 lag time emergency supply of water. So as soon as our system drops, water starts coming into our system to provide that additional pressure. Let's see, what else? Like I said, completion is looking at around Thanksgiving. The wind's kind of been holding us up a little bit. blowing the containment around and making it for unfavorable conditions. But they are committed to work long days, weekends to get this done. Let's see, other projects going on in town. Park Avenue, that started on Monday. Friesen mobilized and started saw cutting and removals. And that project also is scheduled for completion by Thanksgiving. So get everything done before the weather turns on us here at the end of the year. Glendale Estates Unit 4 subdivision. All the underground is done on that, curb and gutter is done on that, and they started paving. One of the first operations that they did is they repaired half of the roadway that was done in Unit 2. So that's been kind of a long-standing issue, unresolved issue with the village. So half of it was done as part of this first pour. Once they make the connection through the subdivision to the adjacent subdivisions, then what they'll do is route traffic in that direction along Grove, and then finish the portion from Timmy to the south and complete that area. So that long-standing issue being resolved. Let's see, MFT, doing some patching along Ptarmigan. Kinney Contractors is doing that work, some minor patching there to replace some of the bumps and utility trench settlements that have been long-standing. And then the other one too is Trustee Fountain had sent me some literature on kind of a slurry type system application for treatment of roadways that we're going to look into for an application of next year. Provide some, I guess more of a pavement preservation type application for maintaining roadways. I know we talked about the rating system, 10 to 1. So the roadways that are in decent shape, but maybe start developing some cracks, a little bit of raveling, and try to preserve those to last a little bit longer. I know that's something that Pat and I had talked about a couple of times before, throwing around, well, does oil and chip make sense maybe in some of the urban areas? A lot of people like what was put down on Gordon Drive there on the south part of town, although I'm not sure that the village is ready to put oil and chip on in-town curb and gutter roadways. So, I think the slurry coat's a good use application for roadways that are in decent shape, but maybe starting to show a little bit of distress, a little bit of cracking, help seal those up, prevent water infiltration, and provide a better ride surface on those. So it's something that's a little bit lower cost, more bang for your buck in terms of bringing the roadway up to par as opposed to a mill and overlay. But Terry, I'll get with you in terms of some of those costs and some of the cost of historical data that we have on other treatment options in the village. And let's see, another thing, last item here, working on with Pat in terms of closing out outstanding letters of credit, looking at some of the older subdivisions that we have these letters of credit that are outstanding, whether the developer's still in town, non-responsive, or just these bank letter of credits are there. In many of these subdivisions, there are latent defects associated from construction, either inlet castings that are sucking dirt down into the sewer system, collapsed pavement and so forth. But working with Jeff and his cohorts, as well as developing kind of notices to some of these banks on some of these outstanding letters of credit to see if the village can recapture any of those funds available. So,
hey Jim, where are we at on Fox Creek and New Addition? Is everything good and done there, or are we still having issues there?
Well, in terms of pavement and grading and utilities, everything's good and done. I'm still not 100% satisfied with the pond area, so I'd like to see some better effort on restoration, but things have been pretty quiet out there. I know there hasn't been any lot sales. There's been no advertisement signs.
So do our engineers need to be with their engineers, or what? How are we with you guys, or what's the way to fix the ponds?
Well, I think it's probably Pat and I contacting RLP Development and seeing what their take is. I know earlier in the year they said they had to go out there to seed it. I don't know if that was necessarily the opportune time. I stated my concerns to RLP Development at that time. I said, well, let's see what it looks like. So once again, I don't think it's I don't think it's something a homeowners association would be necessarily, jumping at the chance to maintain at this point.
The thing is, Matt, is since there's no lots that have sold, it's still the developer's responsibility to keep it maintained and keep it in working operation. So we would always have that to fall back on. We were hoping that they would start selling some houses out there, and maybe that'll be able to give him a better cash flow if he needs it. But
are they even trying?
I don't know.
There's no advertisement.
Yeah.
I didn't think
Lots
so.
for sale. No.
I haven't seen anything.
And it's a really nice area, and it's a really nice subdivision. It's laid out nice. The roads are really, really good.
Roads are stout.
Yeah. So.
People enjoy riding and walking, running, riding their bikes through here.
Yeah.
Friends of mine use it for remote control cars, so that works out really well. But it's a very expensive track.
Beach Adams Airport.
So, hello, Pat.
Other than that, that's all I have. Any questions?
There have been several questions about Park Avenue. I didn't know if we could put something on our website about generally what the goal is and what our timeframes are. I don't know. There are mentions of, the water tanks and such, but nothing about Park, and I've seen several questions, so perhaps we could write up something brief.
We had a construction meeting, and the guy wasn't, the day we had the construction meeting, he did not have a schedule with him on when he expected completion. But
generally, sometime before Thanksgiving, typically the asphalt plant shut down at that point. His goal, just off the cuff goal, was to get all the underground work done by the end of October, leaving himself a little bit of fat there if it goes into the first or second week of October. They think they can get the paving done fairly quick. Milling activities will only take a day or two, and then paving will only be a day or two. So
I drove by there today. They've removed a lot of curb and a lot of sidewalk in that area, almost on every crossroad along there. So
Came in that way.
they made really good progress on the removal, but it will take a little bit of time for them to reset the grades back to where they're out of the way of the sidewalk crossings. And they did have to go back far enough to be able to meet all the ADA requirements to be able to bring those down and pour the curb back. And so.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about it a few times, so I appreciate the updates for us, but I think just generally the public maybe doesn't know exactly what's going on.
We'll get something out there then.
Thank you.
It's ongoing right now. They're installing equipment and piping. I know talking with Bill a couple of times, but yeah, that's still in process, and contractors are out there working on it. Not that I've heard.
And Jim, with them resetting the grades and stuff, knowing it's somewhat flat out there, are we going to be sure not to have any ponds?
That is our plan, not to have any ponds. So most of the radius returns, if not, I think all but like 2 have inlets. So in terms of draining and putting a low spot in the radius returns, we do have an inlet. So we're controlling the grade
In that
the
area.
location of the inlet and then setting the inlet to maintain positive drainage. Now, mid-block areas where we're not touching curb and gutter, that's I have no control over, so we're not replacing curb. We're a couple of areas we're replacing bad or settled curb, but obviously we can't do everything along the corridor. So taking the worst areas, fixing those, and rebuilding the radius returns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, village manager update.
We'll see projects that we're still working on that Jim didn't touch. Dustin, since he's moved into the general foreman position, has been doing a lot of work with the parks. We've got playground equipment repaired that was pointed out that had problems with it. That stuff was all finished today. The Chatham Baseball last weekend came out and painted the doors near the concession stand and did a lot of cleanup, cut back some trees, some dead trees and some brush, and they worked in their area and did a really, really nice job and cleaned that whole area up. but we have big plans for the parks once we're past the mowing season. There's way too many trees around the tennis courts. They're choking off the air to the tennis courts. There's needles all over the tennis courts all the time.
Right.
So we're going to thin some of the evergreens that are growing over the top and leaning on the fences and take those out. It would still give plenty of screening around there, but allow the area to open it up a little bit better. We need to be able to put in a handicap accessible sidewalk to be able to get over to those courts. So we'll be working on that.
Pat, are those trees too big to move to
Yeah.
other locations?
Yeah, they are.
They're huge.
They're huge. I wish we could move them because they're beautiful trees, but I don't think there's any place that we could move them to.
Yep.
Other than that, things have been going along fairly smooth. We put a lot of effort into getting ready for this tank painting, doing a lot of what if scenarios. We've been working on putting together stuff for the annexation. We've still been negotiating with the police department. And I'm going to start putting something together to turn around and try to get a negotiation completed with the electricians. Their contract doesn't expire till next May, but they have given indication that they would like to get something taken care of before next May rolls around. So we'll be putting together a proposal and showing that to you guys too. Is there any other questions you guys might have for me?
Pat, they're at the corner of Ptarmigan and Till in the northwest corner. That just seems to constantly hold water. I don't know if the storm sewer through there is plugged or if it's just undersized or what. But could you possibly have the guys go out there and take a look, and if it is plugged, I guess take the sewer back to it to see if they can clean that up. But it just
Did you see a grate there? Is there? Do you know for sure if there's a grate? That might.
well, there's probably this much water and maybe some leaves in there. I think there's a grate, but I can't say for sure.
All right, I'll check that tomorrow.
Okay.
All right.
With respect to the playground equipment repair, do you have any idea what that was or where?
Yeah, it was the big wooden piece of playground equipment. There was a kind of
At Community Park?
Yeah, at Community Park, there was a chain bridge that we took down and had that all replaced with a wooden crossing across there. So that's all done. There was a piece that came off, and there was a couple of poles that were on the very, very south side of it. That was broke. We boarded all that off and took the poles out of the ground. They fixed about 3 or 4 things today on that. Looks real nice. There's a couple other little things that need to be done. There's a couple roof shingles that are missing on it. But other than that, that one looks like it's back to being in really good shape.
I wanted to thank you guys for that. I didn't get a chance to see it today, but thank you for doing that. I did notice some shingles on the building at Community Park. I don't know if that's been seen or not, but on the southwest side of the building nearest the soccer fields, there's some shingles missing. But thank you very much for the repairs at Community Park.
And their plan is, like I said, Dustin's putting together a winter program for those guys to be able to work on things. And I'm still looking for people that are looking for part-time work to come out and either help mowing or painting or doing carpenter work. We currently have 3 guys that do that now. It really helps us a lot. So if someone's retired and wants to get involved in the community and do something, they do get paid. They don't have to be part of IMRF or anything like that. But if they're interested in it, have them stop by and talk to me. So,
thanks to Chatham Baseball, too, for the cleaning and painting.
Any other questions? The matrix stuff, I know you asked me a question on that. I did check with Molly today, Burns from that's working on her comprehensive plan. They have stumbled on a few things with working out the survey with UIS, but they're still hoping to get that done within the next week or so to be able to get that out. And then the plan all along with Matrix was when that information came back, then they would start doing their next step.
Yeah, I think one of the questions to ask you too is, are they going to talk to us? Because they came and said they were going to talk to us.
Who did?
Matrix.
Well, I think they were waiting till the next step, and then they were going to start and then move all the way through the process.
Because then I want from them, I know, not date specific, but time specific of once we're done with the part of the comprehensive plan that will allow them to continue on. What's left to do and how long is the estimate's going to take? Because also to be considerate of your time, because whenever that takes place, I don't know what you're going to have going on or your staff's going to have going on and what they're going to need. So I think you're going to need lead time to know that, and I think we're going to want lead time too. It just, this company is to, send some more information and communicate.
And we I think Sherry sent off a copy of our budget and did you send the audit too? Or just the budget? Yeah. So, yeah. So she sent the budget document to the gentleman that was working with that part of it. Okay. He got that today and we sent an email back thanking us for it. But
so he's still looking at stuff, or
we haven't received any bills recently, so I don't think they are working on anything of ours right now. But that's probably okay, because if they get the survey back and they get that information, then I think they'll start their process back up and work us into the system.
I just want to know what that process is going to be for them, if they could send that to us.
Okay. ADA Transition Plan Committee update?
Basically, we did not meet last month. There was an issue with getting something posted out there for the meeting, so it ended up getting canceled. I do know, Trustee Schurshold, you had sent a number of questions to Pat and CC'd all of us. I know one of those questions was trying to tie up some gaps in the sidewalks.
Yeah.
And I know I talked to Pat a little bit, and he's indicated that, where we've got the credits, our letters of credit and other means from other funding sources, he's going to definitely try to get those taken care of once those are all identified. I know one of the things we're working on is looking to probably put language together, and I'll probably go through the
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, thank you. To come up with a time frame so that once a plat is started, that within 18, 24 months, something that's reasonable for the contractor, but it's also not out there 10 years later.
Right.
That it will be the developers, or however we come up with the language, that he or she would have to finish up the sidewalks within that plat. So that's one of the things we're looking, so we sort of do away with having these gaps out there. And then, of course, we've got our various priority routes, A, B, and C, and that's where we'll be also taking a look and say, okay, here's our highest priority routes. Where do we have gaps in there? And that's where we're going to end up having to then try to budget village funds to try to make those repairs and stuff. So those are things we have been working on. So I do appreciate the question coming up.
I appreciate you guys working on that. I think that all sounds very reasonable and good. Well, thank you, Trustee Fountain. And Pat, because I know we've been talking about this for a while, and so I know he's been on top of it.
Iron Bridge was the first subdivision that put all the sidewalks in.
Yeah.
And it really made a nice looking finished product.
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
The developers in the past were responsible for everything, all the sidewalks. They still are in a way, but the way that they do it now is you buy a lot and you're a contractor.
Yeah.
And I'm the developer. I give you a credit for putting the sidewalk in for me. So if the lot is 40,000, I'll sell it to you for 38 and you put the sidewalks in. That's the way that it's been going lately. Does it make sense for us to have them put all the sidewalks in ahead of time? If a contractor's trying to build a house and we don't allow them to put the dumpsters out on the street, they have to put the dumpster someplace in the yard. So either they have to go over that sidewalk, or just go ahead and just figure, you know what, I'm going to take out this stretch to this stretch and I'm going to put it back. Leave these in. The only thing then that you risk is you have sidewalk that's been in there for a long time, and then you have sidewalk that just goes in. If they didn't roll it tight and make it a good sub base, then does it work with the ADA requirements where now, sure, when the thing was initially put in, it met all ADA requirements, but when they go to patch a piece back, if they don't get the slope exactly right and everything else,
I realize, there are some issues there.
There is issues,
but, I think what we're seeing, and we'll definitely be bringing to the board, is those gaps that are there.
Yeah.
Because you definitely can't get from this point to that point in some cases.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that I hope the board addresses, and we talked about it at the last committee of the whole, is do we want to have service areas? Do we want to look forward to, say, for instance, like Fox Creek, where they refuse to form a homeowners association and take the responsibility of maintaining the draining swales and the concrete swales? Do we want to assess areas like that and then hire staff and get equipment to be able to go in and maintain that stuff on a regular basis to keep the town looking a certain way? I think that's something that the board is going to have to decide whether that's important to them or not.
All swales?
All swales.
Because you brought this up before, and
yeah,
I've had people, I think there'd be quite a few people that support that.
But, it could be all over town. Now, some subdivisions that currently pay to have their stuff taken care of, you wouldn't assess that area.
Right.
But if you have an area that has concrete swales and retention areas that need to be maintained and no one maintains them,
yeah,
do we go in and look at that subdivision as a whole and say, okay, this is how much it would cost to maintain this area, so therefore this is how much we would assess each individual house? And what can we do legally? Can we actually do that? So those are the kind of things that I think that I need some guidance from you guys going forward, because it's a nightmare right now.
Well, since you first brought it up, I've been able to think about it and talk with others, and just guidance from me, preliminary. I think people would appreciate you, not, as you just stated, not neighborhood associations that are already maintaining it, but for those areas that are not, I think people would welcome it. We don't need all the weeds and everything that's, as you stated at that one meeting, creating the issues in those swales. So it needs to be taken care of. It's going to become a problem. So I would say it'd be something to consider and go forward on.
I would say, and if you can hear me, what I would say is those where the homes do back up to those areas, number one, we have Brian as the code enforcement officer say, okay, you're going to pay this or else. Or you're going to mow this or else. You're going to have to pay a fine because it is your responsibility to take care of that area. And that's why we have those ordinances and fines and fees. So those people that do butt up against those swales and other areas, we make sure they pay them. And I think if you're getting hit with, however much it is, a week or a month, you're eventually going to clean it up.
Well, Matt, one of the things that we run into is people that fence their yards. You put a privacy fence up, you don't see the concrete swale, so you don't take care of the weeds that are growing on the right along the edge to back up to the fence. Or worse, somebody takes their grass and just dumps it over the side. Now, that person owns to the center of that concrete swale, and the person behind them owns to the center of it. They only own from the end of their property line to the other end of the property line. So say, for instance, if you're a homeowner and you have a fence there, but you don't have a gate to get out to your concrete swale. Now you have to go down to the end of the stream, walk all the way down the concrete swale to be able to get back there to clean that up. So,
and the problem, it goes back to who was the person that did that? Me, the homeowner. So I wouldn't have any real concern because the village didn't do it. The person that built the fence did it.
But the problem is you're crossing 10, 15 people's property to be able to get down and clean up what is your property. We've had people before call and say, don't drag, I don't want you cutting through here, I don't want you going on my property. It turns into a nightmare then. So we had one guy actually clean all the stuff out, took it down to the end, left it there, was going to get it the next day in a truck. But the person that lived at the end was so upset that they asked them to take it all back to their property until the truck got there. They refused to do it. So that person in that house took it all the way back and left it at that person's house again. It sounds ridiculous, but it is a problem that needs to be addressed. So if we're going to still require people to maintain concrete swales, I'm going to ask Ryan to write the verbiage that if you put up a fence and you have a concrete swale behind, you're required to put a gate in. That way you can access. Exactly. That way you can access.
That way they don't have a reason that they cannot clean up back there because they have the fence and the gate. They can clean up back there.
But you see how one problem turns to another.
Right.
What if you have your yard fenced and you really don't want a gate in the very, very back?
And
I could see where a lot of people would not want that.
And couldn't they just cover their concrete swale up with dirt?
No.
They did it in the neighborhood behind me.
They're not supposed to.
They're a violation of the drainage laws.
Yeah.
Right. What happens is I, as a citizen, have to sue them.
Because you're forcing water over onto them because we're not responsible for concrete swales.
Right.
I know.
I mean, that's not a village problem at that point. It's a property owner.
And the only time that we get involved in it right now is if it becomes a nuisance.
Right.
If someone declares a nuisance and says the weeds are too high or they've done this or that, then the code enforcement officer will get involved.
Correct.
Till then, it's not our responsibility.
Right. All right.
It's like an anti-nuisance, though. Even though you don't have the weeds growing up, you've got the dirt creating below for the water to go. Okay, Utility Oversight Committee discussion. We had the Utility Commission thing last night, and the biggest issue I see is we're getting complaints on social media, but none of them actually come to us. I know our emails have been posted out there, and I've received a couple of emails on the water. The electric, I've received one, so I only have one question. Is a resident asked about, and then you've had a complaint that you forwarded to us, but I got one personally where she asked about there's a $35 fee for electric to make sure their meter is calibrated correctly. Mm-hmm. What is that fee for? Is it a pass-through? Is there a company that comes out and checks it?
No, we send our own guy out there with equipment to check it. There's two different ways to check a meter. One of them is on site. At $35, we send somebody out. The other one is to take it out, put a temporary meter in, and send it off for testing. And I think that's a couple $100 to test it that way.
And is the $35 in ordinance or?
It's in the ordinance that's what it costs to do it.
Okay.
I think there was a fee because if everybody had a high electric bill over the summer,
right,
they could all be calling in saying, I want you to come test this. I want you to come test this. So, and there needs to be a problem for us to come test it, not just my bill's high.
So, and that's the other question is we've been seeing that a lot of people are complaining about the highness. And I know we did pass an increase, but that increase hasn't kicked in yet, has it?
It has, this past bill.
Okay. It did kick in this. And I know we're part of a co-op. Did the co-op raise their rates as well?
They did 2%.
Okay, so
We raised it 2% on the fixed cost and 2% on the actual rate.
Okay.
And Pat, that's the reason we raised the rates, right? Was because they raised theirs.
Partially. 2% of it went for our fixed cost because we hadn't had an electric rate increase since 2015.
So for the consumer, did they get a 4%?
Yes.
And I know, Pat, we've discussed this before, and
Not exactly.
more people
It's not exactly
I hope
4%.
understand this.
Close.
But we used to just eat those costs, and I talked about this before, where we just eat those costs, and then later down the road we have to have a big, major increase, and that's what people should be mindful of. Is the way it used to be, we just ate the cost, the increases, and then we slammed them with a big increase. So, the increases we've had lately have been much smaller than they used to be.
Okay, and then so it's 2%. We raised it 2% on our side, and they raised theirs 2%. So it was a total of 4, and it hit this.
It's like a 3 point.
Because I thought we were 3 cents.
I'm sorry? 3%.
Okay, so
I've got.
okay,
They don't compound on top of each other. One was
right.
the fixed cost we raised by the same percentage that the variable charge.
All right.
There's pennies on one side, fractions of pennies on the other.
Our fixed cost went from, in 2015, $11.23 for an in-town residential customer. It went from $11.23 to $11.57. So a 34 cents per month increase.
Okay.
The kilowatt usage went from, in 2015, it was 0.1102, and it went to 0.1135. So a 0.0033%.
Okay.
Not percent. That's increase.
Fraction of a penny.
Fraction, yeah.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So I don't think the increases that they're seeing on their electric bills is from this as much as it's been the weather.
The usage.
The dates of the reads.
Yeah.
It's 3%.
Yeah, so the one complaint that you did forward to us, did we have resolution? Has their meter been checked to see if
He didn't want to pay the $35, so he said he wasn't going to pay his utility bill, so we would address it when his utility bill is either due and we shut him off, or.
Okay.
But looking at the history for the electric and for the water, there is no gaps. There's no
spikes.
No spikes, no nothing. It's just, I think this person moved in the house in April. I don't think they realized or checked to see what the utilities were at that house before, and it was a shock to their system.
Right. Okay.
If by chance the meter is confirmed to be incorrect and the person had paid $35, would they get their credit back on their account?
They do. They do.
Okay. That's good to know too.
And once again, water meters they cannot read fast. All they can do is read slower. So the older water meter that you have, the slower it reads over time. So less water gets registered. So you can't have a water meter read fast. The gravity of the water going and pushing that thing in around the circle can't go any faster.
So the other question that was posed last night was, so the meters that we have currently, some of them, they can be read remotely, but you have to drive by physically the location. Is that correct?
We've got 3 different types right now.
Right.
We have the kind that are read by our wireless network. Then we have the kind that are read by when our meter reader drives down the street.
Right.
And then the third one is where it's not picking up in either location or either way. They have to physically read it on the meter.
So the wireless is the one that comes in here and you guys can see the usage. That's the new meters, correct?
And they can see those hourly.
And then the drive-by ones, you have to physically drive down that street to read it as you go. That's what we indicated last night, and we were told that we were probably wrong. We just wanted to confirm that. All right. But all of those meters should be the wireless network within 4 years. Is that what the kind of timeline we were looking at?
I can't guarantee that right now because we have a lot of electric ones and a lot of water ones that we need to change out.
Right.
And I think budget and looking and see where we're at.
Because it's a cost to
Sure.
replace them all.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily the meter, it's the ERT that sits on it. So that's the thing that you can change out. So the meter could be fine and you just change out the ERT that has a stronger signal, and then that stronger signal talks to the wireless network.
Okay.
Either that or we put a whole bunch more of the transmitters around town, and that would pick up more of those meters, but those aren't cheap either. So,
And the last kind of question that came up at that meeting was how long I know we know how long it is, but when is the co-op for the electric? How long are we locked in for that? Isn't that quite a while?
It was a 25-year contract. Do you remember what year it was signed, Dave?
Before me. So it's like 2034 or 2039.
Okay.
And Pat, do you have, I know they were handed out at one time, but the electrical comparisons around the area, I know those were real helpful and real interesting to see, the electrical cost comparisons, including CWLP and those other areas in our area.
We had something like that, and actually we copied one off of CWLP's webpage at one time where they showed that we were lower than them, which I was kind of surprised that they used us in that example. But it is so hard to compare electric rates because of some, like Springfield uses a fuel consumption charge. So if they end up using more natural gas or fuel consumption to be able to operate their plant, they can charge more for that. It varies on what the cost of that fuel is when it's out on the market.
Well, and I have friends in Springfield, and their electric is high at this point right now too.
Yeah, but the stuff that we get from IMEA, they own parts of at least 3 plants, and then they buy other electricity from some from Ameren, I think. I'm not sure if they purchase any from the city of Springfield at this time, but they look for the best price. They go out and they have certain locations that they know they can get electricity from.
Sure.
And then there's other places that they look to buy to be able to fill in off the grid. And we've had fairly steady rates from them. Like I said, if we haven't had an increase from them since 2015, I don't think there's a whole lot of communities that can turn around and say something like that. But no.
Then the last thing, if you kind of, or Jim kind of stole the thunder, was the chloramine conversion, and he said they are installing it. At this point, would you know how close they are?
I don't think they're close right now.
Okay.
I think with them trying to do that install at the same time that Woodard and Kern was going out the door and the new employees were coming in, I think that probably delayed a few things and stuff like that.
Okay.
I think the guys at the South Salmon are starting to get the rhythm of it. At least that's what Bill will go out there 3 times a week at least and check on them and make sure everything's going okay. We do have good eyes on that plant out there at all times with him. He's made a good relationship with the 2 guys that are operating the plant. So I feel a level of comfort there that Bill is more welcome out there now than maybe he was before. So,
are there any open positions out there? Or have they filled?
We're still looking. They're still looking for one more position, and I think at their next meeting they may offer that to a person. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
Would it make sense for Bill to present or maybe just write up the status of that installation to help us have a better understanding of it? Or should we go to their meetings, or how do you suggest that, I become educated?
We can have Bill come here. He's done that numerous times. There hasn't been a whole lot of stuff for him really to report on other than when Jim comes in here on the painting and then making sure that the pressures are all right. He's in here, again, like I said, at least three times a week, stops by, checks, makes sure everything works with Dustin, checks in with me. So, like I said, but we can have him come, whether if you want it at the next board meeting or the next committee of the whole or whatever.
Maybe even
give a report.
Maybe Lee.
Yeah.
Because we'd have to pay for Bill. And Lee should know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, since he seems to be on top of it now. But yeah, an update would be good from those guys to where we're at with all of it.
Because I'm not exactly sure how the whole process goes with putting that chloramine station in and how it works. How long it takes to test it.
And be okayed by the EPA to put online. All right. Any other comments or discussion? Okay. Public comments, village business, we had none. Schedule, okay.
One thing before you go there, next committee of the whole in November, I will not be here.
Okay.
I will probably be calling in at that time, so just give you a heads up.
All right. So schedule meetings, see the village board schedule, the meetings and all the other scheduled meetings. Next committee of the whole will be 6:15 Municipal Hall, November 13th, 2018. There is a reason to go to closed session. So if I could have a motion, it's under 2C2, collective bargaining.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under Article 2C2.
And do I have
I'll second that.
And so Trustee Fountain and Trustee Mao seconded. There'll be no further business after. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call.
Trustee Mann.
Yes.
Trustee Gerger.
Yes.
Trustee Fountain.
Yes.
Trustee Detmers.
Yes.
Trustee Mao.
Trustee Mao?
Yes.
Trustee Churchill.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop the broadcast.
Are you just going to carry me in there, Pat?